We begin with breaking news tonight. We are awaiting a key vote in the powerful House Rules Committee. If it doesn't pass, the nation is barreling towards a default. You're watching the Rules Committee on your screen, debating the rules right now. And right now, the debt ceiling deal just struck between President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is facing its first key test in Congress. That's the Rules Committee. At stake, the risk of a national default. Meanwhile, our nation's debt is astronomical. And as I speak, it is growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's just growing out of control. Good evening and welcome to The Record. I'm Greta Van Susteren. Here are some of the live discussions happening right now.
The Rules Committee does provide a function that I interpret slightly differently than my friend from Kentucky. We're also the filter, not unlike, say, the Calendars Committee in the Texas legislature, of making sure that what gets to the floor is not something that steamrolls the American people, because the defense establishment in this town and those that wish to continue to spend money for every government program under the sun, as has been happening throughout my entire life watching it, there is an important role here to defend the American people.
And I am joined by the Speaker of the House, California Republican, Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta. How are you?
I'm very well. Do you have any doubt? We've been watching the Rules Committee. Do you have any doubt? Is there any piece of you that wonders whether it's going to get out of the Rules Committee tonight?
No, it'll get out of the Rules Committee.
And so on tomorrow to the vote, what time would you expect the vote would be tomorrow?
Well, it's a new Washington. When I became the Speaker, I decided we've got to break from what Nancy Pelosi had, where you had to pass a bill to know what's in it. So I put in a 72-hour rule. So not only could the members read it, the country can read it. This isn't a 1,000-page bill. This is simply 99 pages. 15 of it is of rescissions, of those things that we are pulling back money from, like CDC Global Fund, the $400 million from hardworking taxpayers going to China, the COVID money that is sat out there pulling it back. So I want everybody to be able to read it and vote on it. So we'll vote on it sometime after 7 o'clock tomorrow.
All right, let me talk about the COVID money. Was that something that the Democrats gave up easily? I mean, it wasn't spent. I mean, was there any, what was the resistance to that?
They didn't give up anything easily. They wanted to spend more and more and more. So, I mean, when you read this bill, it's really interesting. I mean, think of the framework. This is the first time I've known that we've actually spent less this coming year than we spent the year before. And we've been able to get the numbers for non-defense back down to 2022, even less than that. We are also able to pull back the largest rescissions in American history, larger than all the other rescissions combined. And then we're able to do work requirements for welfare, running the age from 49 to 54, but really encouraging people with that work requirement to put them back into the workforce, make the economy stronger, and really, you know, when you get a job, the sense of worth of what you have. We've been able to do a number of other policy things. You know how frustrated people get that they can't build roads, that the environment study it for years. We limited that to 1 and 2 years. The first time we reformed NEPA, the environmental process of what we're going through. We've been able to do a number of other things, too, to make Congress actually work. Not do they just have to come back and work in person, but if they don't do the job of funding government, of going through their appropriation bills, that it takes an automatically 1% cut across the board. These are all unique things that we hadn't had in the past, but what's most important about all this, Greta, is this cuts $2.1 trillion. This will be the largest cut in American history that we're able to do. And if you think for one moment where we were back in February, where the president said he would never talk to me, he would not negotiate, that this just had to be a clean debt ceiling where you just raise the debt ceiling. And I was only able to debate about 11% of our overall budget because he eliminated discussions of anything else. That is a pretty big cut, being the largest that we've ever had before.
Well, I suspected you would have gotten a lot more if the House were Republican and the White House were Republican as well. So you had to give up some things, I mean, in order to get this passed. It's a practical matter. What did you give up?
Well, if you read the bill, I don't think there's anything in there we gave up. Now, the argument would be we raised the debt ceiling to go to January 1st of 2025. My idea there is that we'd have a Republican Senate and a Republican president, and we could take the next step of what we're doing here of being able to cut even further and put us on a path to a balanced budget.
Well, why bring
There's no
it though?
tax
I mean, look,
increases.
when
There's no new government programs. Yeah.
Let me take that it's been raised to 2025. That's after the election. And what I understand is that you first wanted to bring it to February 2024, which would have been before the election. So what happened that all of a sudden this deal goes after the election and not before the election?
Well, I didn't think we could get enough votes during that time in 24 to be able to have that debate. I mean, what we're seeing right now is the amount we've been able to cut, the biggest in American history, the policy reforms we've been able to put in, holding this president accountable. How do we be able to lock that in? Now we've got the approach process where you go to the next stage in it and you actually eliminate the wokeism. You pass the bills that we need to put the country back on the right track. And then when we get a Republican president and a Republican Senate, we can actually do the job to finish it where we can look at the entire budget.
Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen told us that June 1st was sort of a drop-dead date when we couldn't find any more money with using extraordinary measures to get it. She suddenly changed it to June 5th. What happened? Did she find some more money, or did it fit a legislative calendar better? I mean, what happened that we got 4 or 5 more days?
Well, that's the cash flow that comes in each day in America. And so looking at the cash flow, but also looking at the outflows of what bills they are paying, it continues to fluctuate day to day. But look, whoever Secretary of Treasury is, whatever they say the date is the date I'm going to have to live by. It could be different, but that's the date that they claim, so be it. I mean, another thing, Greta, you don't know here is that not only did we get cuts and lower our spending, we capped the growth for the next 6 years. That's very important to put us on a path, to put us into a new direction of what we're doing and spending.
What was it like negotiating with the president?
It wasn't easy. I mean, for 97 days, he said he would never talk to me. I had to be a total optimist that eventually he'd turn around. Schumer was on Stephanopoulos saying this is going to be a clean debt ceiling. You wait, we're going to break them. But Republicans United passed a bill, showed that we can do it, and we negotiated off the limit, save, grow. I've always would have wanted more. But if I had a Republican in the Senate, I would have been stronger. If I had a Republican in the White House, we would have got more. But the most unique thing about this, in measuring with any other debt ceiling, this is the most anyone's been able to accumulate to get when it comes to savings. But there's nothing in the bill, from tax increases to new government programs, that the president continued to ask me for. I said no.
Is the president as happy with this bill as you appear to be? I realize you'd like more, but you don't have a Republican Senate and you don't have a Republican in the White House, so you're not going to get more. But what did the president act like when you struck your deal? Was he happy with it?
He wasn't that happy. I mean, he kept telling me there's nothing in this bill for Democrats to vote for. He kept wanting to have revenue raisers, tax increases, and I kept telling him no. At the end of the day, we need to govern. We can't get exactly what we want, but the one thing, if you read through this bill, from the cuts and the savings, the highest ever, from the rescissions, bringing money back, from cutting red tape so we could build things in America again, from doing work requirements for welfare. I mean, these are all positive things that Republicans have always dreamed about getting. And we just got a victory here. We just have to get it through to make it law.
What was the objection by the Republicans to the work requirements? Because as I understand it, the work requirements, there have been some existing work requirements. It extended it by a couple years, and it was for people who are healthy, didn't have child care responsibilities, didn't have elder care responsibilities, and the work requirements would even be volunteer work or would be job training. So what was the resistance inside the White House to that one?
Well, they were opposed. They said it was a red line, if you remember, when we first started talking. And we were able to break that, because what we were able to do is raise the age, not just to 49, but to 54. And this is for able-bodied Americans with no dependents. We are also able to do, and it's really inside the weeds, where states were they were allowed to use 12% to waive that much of not being able to have it. We lowered that to 8%. And every study has shown with the work requirements, it puts more people to work. And we all know what happens when someone gets a job. They have that self-worth. Their world turns around. They got income coming in where they can buy a house, send their kids to college. It just makes our economy stronger. It makes their sense of their ability even greater.
All right, look into the crystal ball. Tomorrow with the vote, how many votes are you going to have, do you think, overall? What's it going to be?
Well, I'll continue to look at the whip, but I think we're going to get this bill passed, and we're going to make America stronger. And it shows when we unite together that we can actually do something big here. We finally turned the tables. Congress is different. This is the people's house. You can see the bills, you can read the bills, but even more importantly, we're turning the tide, not just spending money, we're cutting for the first time that I've seen in a long, long time.
All right, well, I didn't get the answer, so I assume I'll see it after the vote. I'll figure out what the answer is when it's finally tallied. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greta.